Welcome to Four-Legged Loyalty, our YouTube channel, where we share inspiring stories of love and loyalty from our four-legged friends. Today, we will be watching a touching story titled From Pain to Hope, the rescue of a starved and traumatized German Shepherd. In this video, you will witness the difficult journey of Max, a German Shepherd who used to live in love, but fell into a painful situation when he was starved and traumatized for many days. Those dark days left Max with not only physical wounds, but also deep pain in his soul. But in the midst of the storm of loneliness and disappointment, a fateful moment opened up a new hope for Max. We will experience together every tense moment of the search, when the rescuer, a simple but brave man, appeared, following every sign, every dirty footprint on the wet ground, to finally find Max. Let us feel the warm moment when the eyes of the rescuer and Max met, when the promise "you will not be alone anymore" was delivered through gentle and compassionate gestures. If you love stories about rescue, perseverance, and the power of love, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel Four-Legged Loyalty to spread the message of humanity and help those in need of protection always find the light of life. Let us start Max's touching journey together, a story from deep pain to bright hope, proving the revival of faith and love. Thank you for accompanying Four-Legged Loyalty on gloomy winter mornings, when the cold and damp air envelopes everything. The vast forest seems to be immersed in a hazy mist, creating a picture of wild and sad nature. The worn dirt roads, full of dust and traces of rainwater left after a long night, interspersed with yellowed leaves and thin branches, all highlight the fading of time and the loneliness of nature. In that scene, in the vast but quiet space, we encounter the figure of Max, a German Shepherd. Max is no longer the image of enthusiasm and vitality of the old days, but now, in a critical condition, he has become so weak that he is almost unrecognizable. Max's fur is dirty, mixed with small blood spots from unhealed wounds, proving that he has suffered many injuries from collisions with sharp objects or from the ravages of time during days of starvation and lack of care. Max's face, once radiant with faith and loyalty, now looked tired and sad, his eyes dull and lifeless. In a state of collapse, he walked silently through the muddy paths, each step heavy with pain and disappointment. The slow footsteps on the wet ground, mixed with the wind whistling through the leaves, created a sad and lonely melody, as if nature shared his suffering. Every hidden corner in the forest, every fallen leaf, every water stain on the ground seemed to be evidence of the ravages of time on Max's life. In one corner, he huddled under the roots of an ancient tree, where the bark had been eroded by time, temporarily sheltering his small body. In that moment, one could clearly see his loneliness, not just the physical deprivation, but also the mental pain, as memories of safety and love gradually became distant. The faint light of the morning filtered through the leaves, reflecting on Max's face, like faint rays of hope in the cold air. But no matter how fragile the light was, his loneliness and critical state were still evident in every gesture, every sign of fatigue. The feeling of hunger, lack of water, and unhealed wounds made every step of Max difficult, drifting as if he was lost in the vast ocean of life without anyone to guide or protect him. Max's weak bark echoed through the forest, like a wordless cry for help, conveying so much pain, so much fragility in his soul. Those sounds, though small, resounded strongly in the empty space, making the listener moved by the tragedy of a creature that deserved to be loved and cared for. During those dark days, Max not only struggled with hunger and thirst, but also suffered from slow-healing wounds from collisions with sharp objects in the wild forest. Close-ups show Max's fur gradually becoming rough, dirty with dust, mixed with small blood stains that have not yet closed. Those wounds, although not large, are evidence of the violence of the environment, an environment that left him hungry, dehydrated, and without safe shelter for many days. The scene switches to vivid images of Max trying to find food for himself. We see him walking on dirt paths, his eyes gradually blurred with fatigue and hunger, searching for the remaining food scraps among the sand and dead leaves. The air is filled with a feeling of disappointment as each step Max takes seems to weigh more heavily on the burden of hunger and loneliness. The weak barks echo through the forest, like wordless cries for help, conveying so much pain and helplessness. More detailed footage also shows the moments when Max has to stop under the canopy of ancient trees, where the darkness mixed with the dim light of the early morning creates a temporary space of shelter. However, even in that temporary moment, we can still clearly see signs of suffering. Max's eyes no longer have the bright light of faith, but only exude fatigue and deadlock. There are moments when Max trembles from the cold, from hunger, and also from the pain of unhealed wounds. Each of his gestures, each of his sighs is like a tragic symphony, depicting in the most realistic way the painful life of a creature forgotten in the wild. Not only that, the video also depicts scenes recording signs of mental damage. While quietly staggering through the rain-soaked dirt roads, Max sometimes stops and sits quietly by the bank of a small stream, where the water flows like the cry of nature. These images show that not only Max's body is damaged, but his soul is also suffering from loneliness and silent pain. The sound of the wind blowing through the leaves, the gentle sound of running water mixed with Max's weak barking further increases the feeling of insecurity, clearly showing the loss and cruelty of time. Each drop of rain falling on his face is like a tear from nature, clinging and unable to wash away the pain when the love and care that used to be Max's life source is now surrounded by the coldness of hopelessness. Amidst the fading nature and the overwhelming loneliness, Max's inner self gradually emerges as a colorful picture of pain and despair. In the quiet moments, when the cold morning air filters through the leaves, Max sits silently under the old tree, where the weak light is just enough to highlight his sad eyes, dulled by fatigue and hunger. In that weak state, each of Max's gestures contains a separate story. When he trembles, his head bowed, we can clearly see the hesitation of a soul that once knew love, now having to bear the wordless wounds of life. Max's eyes, although having lost some of their vitality from the days of starvation, still retain the image of the bright old days' warm mornings with a loving owner, cheerful laughter, with sheep on green pastures. But now, those eyes contained a sad nostalgia, mixed with confusion when happy memories were just fragments that had suddenly disappeared. Max not only felt the physical pain through the unhealed wounds, but his soul gradually sank into boundless loneliness. Every time he stopped, he seemed to quietly listen to his heart, a slow sigh mixed with the whistling of the wind through the leaves as if trying to find a warm fragment of past. There were times, in the silence of nature, Max looked up at the gloomy sky, his eyes filled with thoughts of a distant future, where the love that was once the source of life suddenly became distant and vague. The everyday details of Max at this time became especially sympathetic. His drooping ears, his tilted head as if he was struggling, and his eyes no longer had the light of hope as before. Every gesture, every slow movement of his revealed a deep pain, a pain not only of the body but also of the soul, when the mental wounds had not yet healed from days of starvation and loneliness in the harsh nature. The rescuer, a simple man, wearing an old coat but still resolute, stepped out from the shadows of the forest, as if he had always been destined to appear at this moment. Every step he took on the rain-soaked dirt road was meticulously recorded. His hand slowly brushed through the dust, drowning out the traces of his tired footsteps. He took no rush, but carefully observed every small detail, from the faint footprints on the ground to Max's weak breathing echoing in the silence. In that moment, the air seemed to slow down, allowing the viewer to feel each decisive moment. The rescuer's eyes, filled with determination and compassion, gradually revealed signs of concern. He bent down, walking slowly through the trees, each step a vow to protect life, a commitment to not let any living being be abandoned. Every gesture, from stopping to watch for signs of Max to carefully touching the wet ground, carries the weight of responsibility and compassion. As the morning light gradually filters through the foliage, creating shimmering streaks on the ground, the rescuer begins to find faint signs of Max, a small footprint, a faint bark from somewhere in the distance. A sense of suspense and tension permeates each moment as he gets closer, seemingly expressing his determination not to give up no matter how difficult things become. The sound of the wind whistling through the leaves mixed with the rescuer's slow footsteps makes the air suffocating with anticipation. And then, in a fateful moment, as the darkness gives way to the dim light of morning, the rescuer and Max's eyes meet. The close-up captures that moment vividly. Max's eyes, tired and hurt, suddenly sparkle with hope. The rescuer's eyes, warm and full of faith, seem to convey the oath, "I am here, you will not be alone anymore." In that moment, all the surrounding sounds seem to quiet down, leaving only the steady heartbeat of two souls, blending together in a sacred and emotional moment. After the rescuer appeared, the search for Max entered an extremely sensitive phase, requiring meticulous and careful observation. The rescuer walked step by step on the sweat-soaked dirt road, where every footprint imprinted on the wet surface of the forest could be a valuable clue. He stopped, using his sharp eyes to observe every small detail, small footprints, faint signs of dirty fur, or even the faint breathing echoing in the silent space. In that moment, the rescuer seemed to listen to every beat of nature. He gently bent down, used his hand to feel the moisture, touched the soft soil, as if exchanging words with nature itself to find the answer. Every detail, from the dirt in the ground to the crumbs of fallen leaves, was carefully remembered by him like each piece of a vivid picture, guiding the journey to save Max's life. The weak morning light filtered through the foliage, illuminating every small sign of existence. In that space, the image of the rescuer appeared with attentive eyes, warm hands, and gentle but determined gestures. He was in no hurry. Each step was taken with meticulousness, as if he knew that even the slightest mistake could cause the loss of Max's precious clue. Close-up shots captured his hand lightly touching the ground, feeling the moisture and the new signs left by time. He paused, closed his eyes for a moment as if to listen to the sound of nature as heart, then opened his eyes with new determination. The feeling of excitement filled the air, mixed with the sound of the wind whistling through the branches, creating a scene that was both rustic and emotional. Each step of the rescuer was carefully recorded, like each chapter of a book of the soul, where each clue was a page of memory, contributing to bringing him closer to Max. During that process, the air seemed to become suffocating with tension, but also warm with kindness. Every footprint, every little sound in the forest was recorded as part of the search. He followed not only with his eyes, but also with his heart, believing that, somewhere, Max still existed. And even though sometimes the signs were only faint footprints, he persisted, listening and searching, as if each step opened up a new hope. As the rescuer walked on the muddy road soaked with lingering raindrops, the air around him gradually became suffocating with tension. Every step he took seemed to carry a lot of anxiety, because the journey to find Max was not easy, and challenges from nature seemed to be intervening at every moment. On the bumpy, small road, the slippery patches after the rain made every step a battle between balance and fatigue. The rescuer had to stop, bend down, and carefully examine every piece of dirt, every small piece of rock, as if they could tell him about Max's traces. The weak morning light mixed with the thick darkness of the foliage created a hazy space, where every sound from the rustle of the wind to the strange noises of wild creatures made his mind more tense. In the middle of the forest, the sudden sounds of nature constantly rang out. The sound of a tree branch breaking, the cry of a wild animal, or even the sound of water rushing through cracks in the ground. Each sound was like a warning, forcing the rescuer to stop, stand still, listen, and observe. He carefully turned around, his eyes scanning every corner of the forest, as if knowing that somewhere, signs of Max were waiting to be discovered. Not only facing a harsh nature, the rescuer also had to endure the pressure of time. Each passing minute increased his anxiety, because signs of Max's small footprint, a weak bark, became more and more blurred under the influence of wind and rain. He clearly felt the internal struggle, between the determination not to give up and the fear that, if he lost too much time, Max might fall into a worse state. That emotion is expressed through every gesture, the trembling hands when touching the ground, the tense but determined eyes, and the gentle sighs mixed with the slow footsteps on the wet road. In moments of extreme tension, the rescuer also has to face other unexpected situations. Once, while he was concentrating on tracking the tracks on a narrow road, a sudden downpour came, obscuring all the signs on the ground. He was forced to find temporary shelter, find a way to protect himself from the rain, but at the same time did not want to stop for too long, knowing that every minute was important for Max's fate. In those moments, the sound of rain, the sound of stagnant water, and the rapid beating of his heart all blended together, creating an emotional scene where human determination and kindness were tested to the utmost. Amidst the tense and quiet atmosphere of the forest, after hours of tireless searching, the fateful moment gradually appeared. In a short silence between the wind whistling through the leaves and the light rain falling, the rescuers slowly approached. The gentle morning light filtered through the leaves, creating weak rays of light but enough to highlight the close-up image of Max the German Shepherd who had endured so much pain and hunger. In that moment, Max's eyes gradually brightened, although still covered in dust and unhealed wounds. They seemed to glow with a fragile ray of hope. At the same time, the rescuer's eyes, full of determination and compassion, slowly approached. They did not need words. In that short moment, everything was conveyed through their gaze and subtle gestures. The rescuer gently bent down, his warm hands gently touching Max's head, both stroking and sending words of reassurance. "You will not be alone anymore." In that moment, time seemed to slow down, allowing every little detail to come into focus. We could feel Max's gentle breathing, the warmth spreading from the rescuer's hand through each old hair. Their eyes seemed to blend together, containing all their feelings: pain, loneliness, but also faith and hope. The close-up shot clearly captured each tear, not a cry but a gentle sigh of faith gradually reviving. The surrounding scenery, with its shimmering foliage and the chirping of birds, further highlighted the magical transformation of that moment. The rescuer took no rush, moving step by step, gradually moving towards Max, as if he were inviting him to step through the door of a new life. In that space, all sounds seemed to quiet down, leaving only the steady, rhythmic heartbeat as a reminder that, after so much bitterness, faith and love can always light up life. No need for praise or boastful words, just a light touch. A glance exchanged was enough to depict all the emotions of that fateful moment. That was the moment when the painful past seemed to disappear, giving way to a new beginning, a ray of hope seeping through each of Max's wounds. On Max's tired but emotional face, we could clearly see the miraculous transformation from lostness, sadness, to eyes filled with faith. In that moment, space and time seemed to stop, leaving only two souls meeting, exchanging promises of a new journey filled with love and care. Every moment of this fateful moment becomes so vivid, rustic, and real that viewers feel every heartbeat, every breath of both the rescuer and Max, two creatures who found each other in a vast ocean of life, ready to open a new chapter of hope. After the fateful moment when Max and the rescuer's eyes met, the surrounding atmosphere gradually changed. The gloomy atmosphere of the forest suddenly seemed to be warmed by the rescuer's gentle and delicate gestures. The man, with a warm face and eyes full of determination, carefully held Max as if he was protecting a priceless treasure. It was not just a touch. His hands gently caressed all over Max's body, from the small wounds to the areas marked by hunger and fatigue, as if each touch carried the promise of a new beginning. In the following moments, the rescuer slowly led Max out of the dark forest. On the rain-soaked dirt road, where every step seemed to be a challenge, the morning light began to filter through the leaves, creating shimmering rays on the ground. The rescuer was slow, gentle, and careful, as if he always knew that every step was important. He stopped at safe spots, gave Max some water to drink, and used a wet towel to wipe the dust off his first simple actions but filled with sincere love and deep concern. In that moment, Max began to show signs of recovery. Although still weak and trembling, he gradually recognized the warmth from those protective hands. Max's dim eyes began to light up, slowly replacing the previous sad eyes with a fragile ray of hope. Each caress, each caring gesture of the rescuer seemed to give Max a new source of strength, soothing the emotional and physical wounds he had suffered during many lonely days. On the way back, the rescuer often stopped to comfort Max, telling him simple stories about life, about family, and about the small joys that can be found in every moment. In those moments, no need for ostentatious words, just a warm hug, a gentle caress is enough to soothe all worries. Every gesture of the rescuer not only shows professionalism in rescue, but also proves compassion, the belief that every living being deserves to be loved and live in safety. As they leave the forest, the morning light becomes brighter and brighter, reflecting through every dew drop remaining on the leaves, on the wet ground. The air seems to become fresher, and every step of the rescuer and Max on the familiar dirt road becomes gentle, like a soft melody, full of hope. In those moments, viewers can feel the faith being revived, the belief that no matter how dark the past is, a loving gesture can soothe the pain and open a new chapter full of warmth and peace. During the time after Max was taken out of the forest, every moment contained a profound message of perseverance, kindness, and the ability to revive faith. Every step on the wet dirt road, under the gradually bright morning light, was like a witness to the arduous journey that Max had gone through. The rescuer, with a warm heart and wordless but compassionate gestures, always accompanied Max through every minute, every step on the path to restoring new life. On the way back, every time the rescuer stopped to give Max some water to drink, he gently wiped the dust off his old fur. Those actions not only soothed his fatigue but also deepened the message that, no matter how wounded the past is, kindness always has the power to heal all pain. At times like these, Max gently placed his head in the rescuer's hand, his eyes gradually sparkling with a new ray of hope. That gaze was like a wordless thank you, like a melodious song telling about the power of perseverance. Every time the rescuer told Max about life outside, about the warm family waiting for him, and the simple joys of the new days, the surrounding atmosphere seemed to become warmer. The rescuer told Max stories of everyday life, memories of family meals, children's laughter, and even the times they sat together under the shade of trees in the small garden. All of these things were like a comforting medicine, helping to gradually soothe the wounds of the past. On each familiar path they walked, each of Max's footprints became clear, like the imprints of new life. When the morning light shone through each drop of dew remaining on the ground, those streaks of light seemed to light up the radiant faith in Max's eyes. The eyes are no longer completely sad, but gradually revealing rays of hope, as if he is gradually realizing that everything can change. Max's actions, from the gentle steps to the small gestures when caressed by the rescuer's hand, are all living proof of the power of perseverance and kindness. In that moment, the surrounding space seems to quiet down, leaving only the steady beating of both of their hearts, mixed with the sound of the wind blowing through the leaves and the gentle flow of a nearby stream. The close-ups of Max's eyes, with a transformation that is not entirely new but already contains a warmth, are also a testimony to the gradual revival of a once damaged soul. Needless to say, every passing moment is a lesson in accepting the past and how people and small creatures can find strength from loving hands and steadfast faith. Every small gesture, every time Max stopped to listen to the wind and the sounds of nature, it was as if he was listening to his own story, a story of wounds being healed, of pain gradually giving way to faith. The rescuer, through gentle actions such as leading Max through muddy paths, giving hugs and caresses, taught Max and the audience that, although life is full of loss and pain, with perseverance, kindness, and faith, everything can be revived and find light again. In the moment the morning light began to dispel the dark clouds of the previous night, the rescuer and Max walked out of the forest together. The space around them gradually brightened, from the warm rays of sunlight filtering through the leaves to the dewdrops still lingering on the wet ground. The fresh air of the morning mixed with the laughter and chatter of the people around, creating a lively, simple, yet loving scene. On the familiar dirt road, each of their steps became slow and gentle, like the dance of nature. The rescuer led Max with utmost care, from the way he gently stroked his ears to giving him a warm towel to wipe off the dust on his fur. Each of those sincere gestures seemed to say that, even though life was full of challenges and losses, love, care, and kindness always existed, ready to soothe the wounds of time. On the way back, as they passed through small gardens and familiar alleys, the laughter of children rang out, interspersed with the friendly greetings of adults. At every street corner, Max's image gradually became familiar. He was welcomed by people with applause, petted, and sometimes even invited to play together in simple but warm moments. People in the community shared small stories about simple happiness, family meals, afternoons spent under the shade of trees in the park, or simply the warm hugs of strangers. All were like pieces of a puzzle that created a loving picture of life. In a small corner next to the path, when the sunlight shone through the cool green leaves, Max sat quietly next to the rescuer. His eyes, now no longer cloudy from hunger or pain, gradually filled with faith and hope. Every time the rescuer stopped to share a story, or simply give him a gentle caress, Max's eyes sparkled like the twinkling stars in the night sky. That feeling made the surrounding space seem to be lit up, filled with vitality and simple joy. In a sudden moment, when the whole community gathered together at a small roadside cafe, laughter and happy stories filled the space. Max was brought outside, where he sat among his new friends, receiving caresses, compliments, and affectionate looks. That atmosphere was not only his personal joy, but also a testament to the power of solidarity, of kindness spreading through every smile, every sincere word. Every gesture, from the light touch of the hand to the hearty laughter of the people around, created a symphony of human love where faith in life was restored through everyday moments. Along the country road, when the sunset began to dye the sky yellow, the image of Max and the rescuer walking slowly under the warm street lights became extremely lyrical. The gentle voices of the people, the small stories about the past, and the hope for tomorrow echoed, creating an atmosphere filled with love and appreciation for every moment of life. Max, although just a dog, but from those simple gestures has become a symbol of loyalty, of the healing power of love. No need for elaborate praise, just with the vivid images of the rescuer, of Max, and of the whole community. From laughter, warm touches to quiet moments together, the message of love spreads in the most natural and sincere way. Every moment of everyday life, from the sound of footsteps on a wet dirt road to the gentle touch of a hand, clearly depicts the power of faith and compassion, opening the door to a future filled with hope and love.